Well now, good evening, friends. Andy Taylor here. What would you do if you woke up one December morning to find that someone had been leaving mysterious gifts on doorsteps all over your town and nobody knew who it was or why they were doing it? That's exactly what happened in Mayberry in December of 1959, just 2 weeks before Christmas. It started as a puzzle, became an obsession for some folks, and ended up being one of the most touching Christmas stories our little town ever experienced. The mystery of the stranger's gifts taught us all something about gratitude, second chances, and how kindness can echo across the years in ways we never expect. Let me tell you how it all unfolded. It began on a cold Monday morning, December 14th. I came into the courthouse around 8 o'clock, and before I'd even had my first cup of coffee, Clara Edwards came rushing through the door, all flustered and excited. "Sheriff Taylor," she said, catching her breath, "the strangest thing happened this morning. I found a package on my doorstep. A beautiful package wrapped in silver paper with a red bow. There was no name on it, no card, nothing. I opened it, and inside was a brand new winter coat, the nicest coat I've ever owned. It fits perfectly, like someone knew my exact size. Who would do such a thing?" Before I could respond, Floyd the barber came in right behind her. "Andy," he said, "I got a package too. A set of professional barber scissors. The expensive German kind I've been wanting for years. Just sitting on my doorstep this morning when I opened up the shop. No note, no nothing. What's going on?" I sat back in my chair, intrigued. 2 mystery packages on the same morning. That was unusual. "Did anyone see who left them?" I asked. Both Clara and Floyd shook their heads. "I asked my neighbors," Clara said, "but nobody saw anything. It's like they appeared out of thin air." Over the next hour, 3 more people came into the courthouse with similar stories. Mrs. Peterson from the hotel received a new set of linens for her guest rooms. The widow Hendricks, who'd been struggling since her husband passed, found an envelope with $200 cash and a note that just said, "For your family's Christmas." Young Tommy Hendricks, her boy, got a brand new bicycle by noon. Word had spread through Mayberry like wildfire. Someone was leaving gifts, expensive and thoughtful gifts, and nobody had any idea who it was. Aunt Bee came by the courthouse at lunchtime, bringing me a sandwich, and she was all Atwater about it. "Andy," she said, "have you heard? Mystery gifts. All over town. Who could it be? Do you think it's someone from Mayberry?" "I don't know, Aunt Bee," I said, "but I aim to find out." That afternoon, I started investigating. I talked to everyone who'd received a gift, trying to find a pattern. The gifts were all different, all tailored to the specific needs or wants of each person. That meant whoever was giving them knew these people, knew what they needed or desired. The gifts had been left sometime between midnight and dawn, when most folks were asleep. Nobody had seen anyone. No cars had been heard. Nothing. Barney, my deputy, had his own theories. "Andy," he said, pulling out his notepad, "I've been analyzing this situation using advanced deductive reasoning. Clearly, we're dealing with a sophisticated operation here. This person or persons unknown has been conducting surveillance on the town, gathering intelligence about residents' needs and desires. We could be dealing with anything from a secret admirer to a guilt-ridden thief trying to make amends. Or," Barney paused dramatically, "we could be dealing with something supernatural." "Supernatural?" I said, trying not to smile. "You think a ghost is leaving gifts?" Not a ghost, Barney said seriously. Santa Claus? I had to laugh at that. Barney, Santa. Claus doesn't come until Christmas Eve, and he doesn't leave gifts on doorsteps in the middle of December. Well, Barney said, deflating a bit, it was just a theory. The next morning, Tuesday, more gifts appeared. The Williams family, who had 4 children and not much money, found bags of groceries on their porch. Mr. Tucker at the drugstore received a generous payment on his late wife's medical bills he'd been struggling to pay off. Miss Crump, the school teacher, got a complete set of new textbooks for her classroom, something the school budget couldn't afford. Each gift was perfect, personal, and anonymous. The whole town was buzzing with speculation. Some thought it might be a wealthy relative of someone in town. Others thought it was a group effort, neighbors helping neighbors. A few, like Barney, held on to more creative theories. I decided to stake out Main Street that night to see if I could catch a mysterious benefactor in the act that I positioned myself. In the courthouse at midnight, lights off, watching the street through the window. Barney wanted to join me, but I told him to get some sleep. The night was cold and clear, with a bright moon making it easy to see. I sat there for hours, watching, waiting. Around 3 in the morning, I was starting to think nobody would show when I saw movement. A figure, dressed in a long dark coat and hat, walking quietly down the sidewalk. He was carrying a bag and moving from building to building, leaving packages on doorsteps. I couldn't see his face clearly from that distance, but he moved like a younger man, maybe in his 30s or 40s. I waited until he'd left several packages. Then I quietly went outside and followed at a distance. He worked methodically, placing gifts carefully, making sure they were protected from the cold. When he finished on Main Street, he headed toward the residential area. I followed, keeping to the shadows. He went to the Hendricks house first, leaving another package, then to a few other homes. Finally, he walked to the edge of town, to the old Mayberry Inn where travelers sometimes stayed. He went inside, and I waited a few minutes before following. The night clerk, half asleep at the desk, told me a man had checked in 3 days ago, paying cash, keeping to himself. Room 7, he said. Name in the register is James Mitchell. I decided not to knock on his door at 3 in the morning. Instead, I'd come back in daylight and have a conversation. The next morning, I returned to the inn around 9 o'clock. I knocked on the door of room 7, and after a moment, a man opened it. He was probably in his late 30s, well-dressed, with kind eyes and a slight smile. Yes, he said. Can I help you? I'm Sheriff Andy Taylor, I said. Mind if I come in for a chat? He hesitated, then stepped aside. Of course, Sheriff. Please. The room was neat, with a suitcase in the corner and a list of names on the desk. I recognized some of them, people who'd received gifts. Mr. Mitchell, I said, sitting down, I think you know why I'm here. He nodded slowly. The gifts, he said. You figured out it was me. I have. Mind telling me why you're doing this? James Mitchell sat down across from me and was quiet for a moment, gathering his thoughts. Sheriff, he finally said, I grew up in Mayberry. Not as James Mitchell. That's a name I took later. I was born Jimmy Wheeler. I could see he was watching for recognition, but the name didn't ring a bell immediately. Wheeler, I said. I knew a Wheeler family, but they moved away. Must have been 25 years ago or more. That's right, James said. We left in 1934. I was 10 years old. My father had lost his job, lost everything in the Depression. We were about as poor gets. That winter, the winter of '33, we didn't have enough food, didn't have warm clothes. My mother was sick, and we couldn't afford a doctor. I remember being so cold, so hungry, thinking that was just how life was going to be forever. He stood and walked to the window, looking out at the street. But then he continued. Something happened. It started a few days before Christmas. Someone left a basket of food on our doorstep. Then the next day, a box of warm clothes, coats and boots that fit my brother and me perfectly. Then medicine for my mother. Then an envelope with money, enough to pay our rent for 3 months. We never found out who it was. My parents asked around, but nobody would admit to it. Whoever it was wanted to stay anonymous. Those gifts, Sheriff, they saved us. They gave us hope when we had none. My mother got better. My father found work in Raleigh, and we moved away to start over. But I never forgot Mayberry, and I never forgot that someone here cared enough to help us when we needed it most. I was starting to understand. So you came back to pay it forward, I said. James nodded. I've done well for myself, Sheriff. I own a manufacturing business in Charlotte, and I've been blessed with success. Every December, I try to find a way to give back, to be for someone else what that anonymous helper was for my family. This year, I decided to come back to Mayberry. I wanted to see if I could find out who helped us all those years ago, and I wanted to leave gifts for families who might be struggling the way we were. I've been watching the town for a few days, talking to people, learning who might need help. It's brought back so many memories, good memories of this place. I thought about what he told me. Mr. Mitchell, Jimmy, I said, what you're doing is kind and generous. But folks in town are pretty curious about who's behind all this. Some are even getting a bit anxious, wondering if there's some kind of catch. Have you thought about revealing yourself? He shook his head. I wanted to stay anonymous, just like whoever helped us stayed anonymous. There's something pure about giving without expecting recognition or thanks. I understand that, I said. But let me ask you something. Would you be willing to meet some of the people you've helped? Not as a big reveal, just quiet conversations. I think it might mean something to them. And honestly, it might give you some closure about your own past. James considered this. I suppose I could, he said. I'm planning to leave tomorrow, but I could stay another day or two. Good, I said. Let me set some things up. That afternoon, I went to see the widow Hendricks. I knocked on her door, and she answered with Tommy at her side. Mrs. Hendricks, I said, I'd like you to meet someone. I brought James Mitchell to her door. This is the man who left the gifts for your family, I explained. James stepped forward, a bit nervous. Mrs. Hendricks, he said, I hope I didn't overstep. I know what it's like to struggle during the holidays, and I wanted to help if I could. The widow looked at him with tears in her eyes. You didn't overstep, she said. You've been an angel to us. Tommy here has been so happy with that bicycle, and the money, it means we can have a real Christmas. How can we ever thank you? You don't need to thank me, James said. Just, if you're ever in a position to help someone else someday, do it. That's thanks enough. Over the next day, I arranged for James to meet several of the people he'd helped. Each meeting was touching in its own way. Floyd the barber shook his hand vigorously and offered him a free haircut for life. Clara Edwards hugged him and cried. Miss Crump showed him how excited her students were about the new textbooks. Each person wanted to express gratitude, and James, despite his initial desire for anonymity, seemed moved by their responses. On Thursday evening, I invited James to my house for dinner. Aunt Bee was thrilled to cook for someone new, and Opie was fascinated by the story of the mystery gift giver. Over pot roast and mashed potatoes, James told us more about his childhood in Mayberry. "I remember fishing at Myers Lake," he said. "I remember the church bell ringing on Sunday mornings. I remember Mr. Foley at the movie theater, letting kids in for free, sometimes if we didn't have money. This was a good place, a kind place. I've lived in cities, I've traveled the world, but Mayberry has stayed in my heart." After dinner, Opie asked James a question. "Mr. Mitchell," he said, "do you still want to know who helped your family back then?" James looked surprised. "I do," he said. "I've always wondered." Opie looked at me, and I nodded. I'd done some checking that afternoon, talking to some of the older residents in Mayberry. Opie ran to his room and came back with a piece of paper. "Pa helped me write this down," he said, handing it to James. "It's a list of everyone who might have been part of helping your family." James read the list, and his eyes widened. "All these people?" he said. "But that's almost half the town." I smiled. "Jimmy," I said, using his childhood name, "here's what I found out. After talking to some folks who were around in 1933, it turns out there was no one anonymous helper. It was the whole community. When word got around that the Wheeler family was struggling, people organized quietly. One family donated food, another donated clothes, someone else collected money from various households. The Reverend coordinated it all, making sure everything got to your doorstep without anyone taking credit. It wasn't one person being generous. It was Mayberry being Mayberry." James sat there, stunned. "The whole town?" he finally said. "Everyone came together to help us? That's what communities do," Aunt Bee said gently. "We take care of our own." James was quiet for a long moment, processing this. Then he said something that stuck with me. "Sheriff, all these years, I've been trying to be like that one person I imagined, that single hero who saved my family. But the truth is even better. It wasn't a hero. It was a community. It was people deciding together that no family should suffer if they could prevent it. That's a much more powerful example." "You're right," I said. "And what you've done this week, you've reminded this generation of Mayberry what the previous generation understood, that we're strongest when we help each other, when we look out for folks who are struggling." The next day, Friday, James prepared to leave Mayberry. But before he did, he asked if he could address the town. We arranged a gathering at the town hall that evening. Pretty much the whole town showed up, curious about what the mystery gift giver wanted to say. James stood in front of everyone, a bit nervous but determined. "Folks of Mayberry," he began, "I'm Jimmy Wheeler. Some of you older folks might remember my family from the Depression years. We were the family that nearly starved one winter, the family that was saved by anonymous gifts in December of 1933. He told the story of his childhood, of the gifts that appeared, of how they'd changed his family's trajectory. "I came back this week," he said, "to pay forward the kindness that was shown to us. But I also came hoping to thank whoever helped us." Sheriff Taylor discovered something wonderful. It wasn't one person. It was all of you, your parents, your grandparents, the whole community coming together. That's the spirit of Mayberry, and it's something I've carried in my heart for 25 years. The room was very quiet. "You've all been generous to let me give back in this small way," James continued. "But I want you to know that you've given me something far more valuable. You've shown me that the kindness I remembered wasn't a fluke or a one-time thing. It's who you are, who this town is. In a world that's getting faster and sometimes colder, Mayberry is still a place where people matter, where neighbors help neighbors, where nobody gets left behind. Hold on to that. Don't let it change. The world needs places like this, people like you." There was applause and more than a few tears. After the gathering, many people came up to James, shaking his hand, hugging him, telling him he'd always be welcome in Mayberry. He promised to come back, and over the years, he kept that promise. He'd visit every Christmas, and he'd always find quiet ways to help families who needed it. But the story didn't end there. James's generosity inspired others in Mayberry. The next year, several families got together and created what they called the Mayberry Christmas Fund, a community pot that anyone could contribute to, and that would be used to help families in need during the holidays. It started small, but grew over the years. They kept it anonymous, just like the gifts James had received and the gifts he'd given. They wanted it to be about the community, not about individuals getting recognition. Opie was particularly moved by the whole experience. That Christmas, he took all the money from his piggy bank and donated it to the fund. It wasn't much, just a few dollars, but he wanted to be part of helping others. I was proud of him for that. Years later, when he was grown, he told me that James Mitchell's story had taught him one of life's most important lessons, that receiving kindness creates a responsibility to pass it on. Looking back on that December, I realized what made it special wasn't just James's generosity, though that was remarkable. It was the reminder of who we were as a community. In 1933, Mayberry had faced hard times, but people had come together to take care of the Wheeler family. In 1959, James came back to honor that legacy and found that the same spirit was still alive, and his actions re-inspired that spirit in a new generation. It's a cycle, you see. Kindness begets kindness. Generosity inspires generosity. When we help others, we don't just change their circumstances, we change their hearts, and they in turn change other hearts. That's how good spreads through a community, through time, across generations. The mystery of the stranger's Christmas gifts became one of Mayberry's favorite stories. We'd tell it at Christmas gatherings for years to come. Parents would tell their children about Jimmy Wheeler, who grew up to be James Mitchell, and how he never forgot where he came from or who had helped him. The story taught us that no act of kindness is ever wasted, that what we do for others echoes forward in ways we might never see. James kept in touch with many of us over the years. He'd send Christmas cards, and occasionally he'd call to check in. He told me once that coming back to Mayberry had healed something in him, had closed a circle that had been open for 25 years. He'd spent his whole adult life wondering about that anonymous helper, building them up in his mind as some kind of saint. Finding out it was the whole community working together had been even better than finding one person. It proved that ordinary people, just by caring and cooperating, could create miracles. There's another layer to this story that I think is important. James had become successful, wealthy even, but he'd never forgotten where he came from. He could have easily left his past behind, pretended he'd always been James Mitchell the businessman, and never been Jimmy Wheeler the poor kid. But he didn't. He embraced his history, honored it, used his success to pay tribute to the people who'd helped him. That takes character. It's easy to be generous when you've always had plenty. It's harder to be generous when you remember what it felt like to have nothing, because giving away money when you've been poor can feel scary, like you might end up poor again. But James had learned something important. Security doesn't come from hoarding what you have. It comes from being part of a community that takes care of each other. When everyone looks out for everyone else, nobody has to live in fear. That Christmas of 1959 was special for another reason. It reminded us that Christmas isn't just about presents and decorations and big meals, though those things are nice. It's about the spirit of generosity, about remembering others, about being the light in someone's darkness. James had shown up in Mayberry carrying bags of gifts, but what he really gave us was a reminder of who we were and who we could be. He gave us back our own story, showed us that the values we'd lived by in hard times were still worth living by in better times. And in return, we gave him closure, community, and the knowledge that his childhood experience had been real and lasting, that Mayberry was still the good place he remembered well now. That's the story of the stranger's Christmas gifts, of Jimmy Wheeler, who became James Mitchell, and of how one act of community kindness in 1933 echoed forward to inspire more kindness in 1959 and beyond. It's a story about gratitude, about paying forward, about how communities work when people actually care about each other. As Christmas approaches wherever you are, I hope this story reminds you that you have the power to be someone's anonymous helper, their Christmas miracle, their reason to believe that good people still exist. And if you've ever been on the receiving end of unexpected kindness, honor it by passing it on. That's how we build the kind of world we all want to live in, one act of generosity at a time, one community at a time. I hope you enjoyed that story, friends. Come back and visit again real soon. Until then, this is Andy Taylor saying good night from Mayberry and Merry Christmas. Remember, the best gifts are the ones we give from the heart, expecting nothing in return. Take care now, and may your holidays be filled with the warmth of community and the joy of giving.